Illinois versus USC in a new age Big Ten battle in Champaign. Let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. My name is Sonny Verma, your host here at Locked On, where I give you coverage every single day, and everything you find here is absolutely free. Only thing I ask for in return is if you don't mind, if you can hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, I have to do this. I apologize. For those of you who are watching for the first time this week, my everydayers know last week I made a friendly bet with Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers and saying that the loser would have to wear the opposing team's baseball cap for the following week's shows. Well, that's what I'm doing here. So if this bothers you, as it should, please go ahead and download the show on your favorite audio platform. I swear to God, I put this hat on every single day, apparently, and it gets smaller and smaller. Regardless, we're going to be moving on from that Indiana game, despite what I'm wearing on the top of my head. And I did a crossover episode with Marc Kulkin from Locked On USC. I figured it'd be a way for us to learn a little bit about the Trojans. It's going to be a really tough matchup on Saturday. Obviously, Big Noon is coming into Champaign for the very first time. A lot of Illini fans are feeling very nervous about this matchup, and quite honestly, probably deservedly so. But let's learn a little bit about the Trojans right after this.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Marc Kulkin from Locked On USC. That's Sonny Verma from Locked On Illini. We're doing a crossover episode for this week, and again, USC versus Illinois. They haven't played each other since the Rose Bowl back in 2008.
Didn't go too well for us.
All right, so it's another crossover edition. Locked On USC, Locked On Illini. USC, they're 4-0. They're coming off a home win against Sparty, 45-31. Sonny, you guys, you had a little bit of a rough weekend. What the heck happened in Bloomington, man?
Yeah, it was just one of those, just a bad night overall Saturdays. The first quarter didn't end up too bad. It was like 14-7, and then the wheels absolutely just fell off. If you really want the Cliff Notes, if you're going to really make me relive through that whole nightmare again, I'm going to make this as quick as possible. But essentially, you're talking about Indiana and Illinois, whether they acknowledge it or not. Curt Cignetti and Bret Bielema know that they're kind of fighting for the same spot in the Big Ten Conference. And so this game was very important for both programs. And coming into the game, it turns out that two of Illinois' starting cornerbacks were out, injury report. So we're like, well, one we expected, Xavier Scott. Jaheim Clark was supposed to play, but he was marked as out on the injury report. Not ideal. Then in the second quarter, we lose the captain of our defense, Miles Scott, who has the earpiece. So now we're down three of our, very important defensive backs in that defensive backfield. And then to keep this nightmare going, Mark, we ended up losing 6 out of our 7 defensive backs in that backfield. So we're at the point where, Curt Cignetti's not one to let his foot off the pedal. And so when you put a potential number 1 overall quarterback, match him up with an assassin of a head coach and some very good wide receivers, it was just one of those where, if I'm being real with you, Indiana was the better team that night, Saturday night, but it's the injuries and the depletedness of that roster that made the score 63-10.
Yeah, no. I didn't get a chance to watch the entire game. I every time I blinked, there was a new score on the scoreboard. Yeah. But to your point, I mean, you lose 6 out of your top 7 DBs, and you've got a veteran quarterback. You have a couple of good receivers for the Hoosiers. And as you mentioned, Cignetti, he likes to play the role of bad cop, I guess is the best way to put it. He likes to get in. So, yeah, that probably didn't bode well. That's a bad combination.
Exactly. I mean, I was telling my Discord, that was a game in Illinois situation that 90% of the country would have lost by 30 plus points. It's
Indiana is not 53 points better than your squad. I'll go there.
Yeah.
That day they were better. 53 points, that's what the scoreboard said. But play that game again in Champaign or maybe a neutral site, and you have your, at least half of your personnel available.
Right. That'd be nice. Yeah.
Probably a different result.
Yeah, it is. You just got to tip your cap to them, and then you just move on, right? You're still 3-0. Coming into that game, you had the longest win streak in the entire nation, having won 7 in a row. You got your butts beat, and it just so happens the entire nation watched it. You fell 14 spots in the AP poll. Now everyone's counting you out, and so now it's, Bret Bielema just recently got an extension. He's, I think, the 4th or 5th highest paid coach in the Big Ten Conference. We're going to find out this weekend if what he has up his sleeve when it comes to really rebuilding the confidence of a team that was shaken Saturday night.
Well, and that's what I want to talk to you about in this first segment, is what does USC need to know? Because I watched Illinois when you guys played Duke, and that, Duke was moving the ball, but, you guys created 5 turnovers, and that was the difference, and you saw it on the scoreboard. So if you're Bret Bielema right now, what have you learned about your team through 4 games?
You've got a very smart quarterback. You've got depth when it comes to your wide receivers and your defensive backfield. Well, I mean, we'll see when it comes to the injury situation coming Saturday. And you've got a veteran team.
Okay.
Big question marks right now. And I'm telling you, Mark, we've had to deal with this for the 3rd straight year. It seems like every season we start off the first third of the season or first half of the season wondering what is wrong with our offensive line. And that's exactly what's going on this year. We were counting on this offensive line, which, by the way, we return everybody. And we're a top 1/3 offensive line in the Big Ten Conference last year, returning a future NFLer in J.C. Davis.
Okay.
When we got all those guys to sign on to come back, we thought, hey, you've got a veteran offensive line. You got a senior quarterback who's going to be in the same system for 3 years in a row, playing under the same head coach, same offensive coordinator. And that's kind of like a cheat code. We thought we were set. But the offensive line, once again, for the 3rd straight years, just has a super rocky start. And it's up to Bret and our offensive line assistant coach, Bart Miller, to figure this out, because it struggled in that first half against Duke. It even struggled in that first half against Western Michigan. But eventually, halftime adjustments were made, and Illinois dominated in the second half. I think they had a combined score of 56-9 in the second half of those 2 games. But it struggled in the first half against Indiana, but Indiana's got some dogs on that defensive line, just like you guys do. And so it's one of those situations where Illinois couldn't overcome and couldn't make any halftime adjustments because simply the scheme and the talent on the other side was better. And Bret, well, the pressure's on because right now they've got to figure something out because you guys are going to throw similar monsters at us on Saturday.
Yeah, right now USC leads the nation in sacks. I guess the question USC fans want to know about is your offensive line better at run blocking or pass protection? Because you're bringing up USC's D line. If they're not getting to the quarterback, they're also creating a lot of pressure. So, what should USC fans know about your O line? What's the strength right now? Is your running back healthy? I think I read somewhere that you're dealing with a running back issue as well.
Yeah, we've got a 3-headed monster when it comes to the running backs. We've got Caden Fagan, who's 6'3", 255 pounds. We've got Aiden Lawfrey, who's you're referencing. He was supposed to be healthy. He wasn't on the injury report last week against Indiana, but he ended up not playing. I guess he had some issues in the pregame, so they decided not to test it. And then we have a young sophomore named Khalil Valentine, who's kind of different from the other two. He's kind of a quick, speedy, can change directions very quickly type of running back. Again, you have 3 solid running backs back there, but the problem right now is that Luke Altmyer is just not getting much time when it's time to make a throw. And so if you're asking me which one is a strong suit right now between pass protection and rushing, I couldn't tell you. Our running backs aren't getting much when it comes to the running game. I believe we had 2 yards total rushing against Indiana. And then the pass protection, Luke Altmyer got sacked 7 times. So it's simply one of those. And it boggles my mind because this is a Bret Bielema team, Mark. Bret Bielema is supposed to be known for his offensive linemen. There's no head coach in the entire country that has put in more offensive linemen to the NFL than Bret. And yet, for some reason, this is an issue.
This is what concerns me is, I'm looking at the, Vegas, and they're saying, all right, USC, I think the line started as a touchdown favorite. It's dropped a little bit, but Illinois is supposed to be a good team. They just got embarrassed nationally, and here comes USC on homecoming. Are they running into a buzzsaw where Illinois says, you know what? We're tired of everybody, pointing their fingers and laughing at us. Let's go show everybody why we were considered a playoff team. So that's my concern. And some of that's a little bit of a PTSD because I'm still waiting for USC to beat a ranked team. I don't care if it's at home or on the road. They need to check that box before I'm ready to say, all right, USC is back. Even though, they have some flaws as well, they can play with anybody. That's what I need to see. And that's what concerns me is that Illinois is going to put it together this weekend.
I mean, that's a valid concern, Mark. A lot of the country, and not even talking about national fans, a lot of Illini fans have essentially counted us out on Saturday. But I will tell you that since he's taken over Illinois, Bret Bielema tends to follow up embarrassing losses with some quality wins in the very next game. So what I'm hoping is that, again, Saturday, it's homecoming in Champaign. Big Noon is visiting Champaign for the first time ever. So, again, 63-10 on Saturday wasn't nice, but I hope the energy is going to be there. The fan base is going to be there. And now that a lot of people have counted Illinois essentially out, I thought this line should have been a pick 'em. I think a week ago it would have been a pick 'em, or at least very close. But then having this sort of drubbing happen to have, I think last check for me it was 7.5, believe it or not, according to our friends on FanDuel. I'm hoping this is just one of those situations where Bret and that coaching staff are going to be in their offices 24 hours a day, coming up with a game plan. And the key is just fix that offensive line. If you fix that offensive line, I think everything else will take care of itself.
Well, you're going to get a chance to ask me about USC and the threat they pose in the next segment. I'll just give you a little primer. USC's quarterback, he's been playing pretty good this year.
Yeah.
So if you can't get that secondary fixed, we'll talk about that in the next segment, I'm sure.
It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who's Delivered. Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more time every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. All right, when we're talking about who delivered on Saturday, I'm just going to say the Locked On Illini community. We had over 200 people in the postgame. Trust me, there's no players that deserve any awards for that performance on Saturday. So I'm going to give the proper respect to you guys. And just like you guys delivered for Locked On Illini, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it all up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I use FanDuel because I want to bet different things every single day. Some days I want to bet an over. Some days I want to bet an under. Sometimes I just want to bet the spread. Sometimes it's just player props. Whatever I'm in the mood for, FanDuel is going to let me do it. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit of more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
All right, Sonny. I gave you the fifth degree. I think you gave me everything we needed to know here. USC fans are now sitting back there going, all right, feel good. Feel better than Mark does. What do you want to know about USC in 2025? What concerns? What do you think? Where do you think you guys have the advantage?
Well, you know what? First, before we get into that, I did want to say there was a particular USC Trojan that salvaged my football weekend, and that's once again, thank you for Caleb Williams. He's the quarterback of our Chicago Bears team who had 4 touchdowns and arguably his best game. So, I don't have just all ill will for the USC Trojans. At least I appreciated them on Sunday for not really making me miserable. But talking about this year's team, let's just kind of start from the beginning. Obviously, you guys are newer, air quotes, to the Big Ten Conference. And, the narrative essentially is that Lincoln Riley's teams may struggle a little bit more with the more physical teams. Of course, they've got athletes and they're very skilled essentially every single year. But when you try to think of a prototype of a type of team that Lincoln Riley kind of struggles against, Illinois kind of resembles something like that. They will punch you in the mouth. And now, again, we can talk about whether the talent level is high enough for a USC team. But I guess what's different about this year compared to previous years? Because you guys have gotten off to pretty hot starts before and then kind of stumbled once the Big Ten season starts.
Sure. So last year, USC got challenged to a fist fight by LSU in Vegas to open the season. Those weren't my words. Those were Will Campbell, LSU's starting left tackle at the time. Says, we're preparing for a fist fight. USC got punched in the mouth, but they were last man standing at the end of the game. You're referencing last year, USC lost to Michigan. They lost to Minnesota. They lost to freaking Maryland, and then they lost to Washington. All those games on the road, all of those games, USC held a fourth quarter lead late in the fourth quarter, but they ended up losing. I think you combine total less than 14 points at the end when you combined everything. It came down to, was USC in the type of physical condition to play in the big conference that you're alluding to? So during the offseason, they changed their strength and conditioning coordinator. They brought in Trumaine Carroll, who was at Kansas State. Kansas State is always physical. I don't care what their record is. They always play physical. USC has addressed that, hopefully, during the offseason. The offensive line, both trenches, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're deeper. That was the other issue last year. USC did not have the necessary depth, including the size, to play with the big conference. Again, remember, USC was coming from the Pac-12, more of a finesse conference, using your finger quotes, compared to the big. So there was that adjustment period. That doesn't excuse the losses that USC had last year, especially to the teams they lost to.
Sure.
So your defensive line is a year older. You brought in more players. You've got the super frosh freshman, Shaquem Stewart, who's starting to make his play. You have another freshman who plays interior. His name is Floyd Boucard. You return Anthony Lucas. That's no longer Cameron Fountain. His name is Cameron Crawford now, for your notes. Braylon Shelby is also at the edge. You brought in 700 pounds from the SEC in Keyshawn Silver. You might have saw the highlight of Jamal Jarrett with that interception for 70 yards. That's what USC's bringing on the defensive line. So if you guys want to get into a fist fight, step into the phone booth and kind of play inside there, I think USC is going to be prepared to play it. Now, saying it and doing it are two different things. This has been the game that I have been circled all year. Before the season started, going back to spring, USC was expected to be 4-0 coming into this game. Mm-hmm. This is the pivotal game. So, to answer your question, I think USC is physical enough to play with Illinois. Again, is Illinois ready to bounce back from what happened last week? And we'll find out.
So let's, talk about, you brought up the defense. Let's talk about the defense a little bit, because I know the offense is going to be there, but so we can talk about that kind of last. Obviously, you came up with a nice solid victory over both Purdue and Michigan State. But, the fact that game was on at 11 p.m. Central Time, I was able to watch it after the debacle, the Illinois-Indiana debacle. And obviously, you guys won pretty, comfortably. I'm not going to say handedly, but Michigan State and Aiden Childs did put up a pretty decent offensive output. Can you kind of describe to me maybe the USC Trojans for the Illini fan base that's going to be watching this?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, USC leads the country in sacks. They have 16 through 4 games. Last game, they only had 2 and 7 tackles for loss. Before that, they were averaging over 5 per game. Their issue right now, as far as stopping the run, they've given up a couple of big runs, but they're averaging less than 100 per game. So I think they're giving up 93 yards per game against the run. It's against the pass where they've been susceptible to splash plays, big explosive plays. Purdue had a couple. Michigan State, they had a 40-yarder at the beginning of the game, and they had a 75-yarder at the very end of the game. But right now, USC is trying to find the answer at nickel and a cornerback opposite DeCarlos Nicholson, who is the most veteran guy on the roster. You guys have had some issues in your secondary. The same thing can be said for USC right now. They're trying to get that figured out. At safety, they're great up the middle. You have Bishop Fitzgerald is the transfer from North Carolina State. He already has 3 interceptions. He had 2 against Purdue that were really timely. One in the end zone, the other one right in front of the end zone. And then you have Kamari Ramsey, who they keep moving him back and forth between safety and nickel. I prefer them leaving him at safety because that nickel spot, he just doesn't look very comfortable. So that's where USC is susceptible. If you're going to catch them, and Luke Altmyer can do that, and if you've got the wide receivers as well, is you can dink and dunk USC across the middle, running the slant. Every now and then you'll catch them deep because they're not communicating properly. But if you can't keep sustained drives, that'll be a problem. So USC has been hot and cold against the pass, but they've been so good offensively that other teams are throwing a lot because they're trying to keep pace. So it's kind of that yin-yang thing going on.
Yeah, that's what I said on my show earlier this week, that whether you win or lose, if you want any chance of winning, you're going to have to score 30, 35 plus points against USC. This is arguably, behind maybe Ohio State and maybe Indiana. I'd put you guys ahead of Indiana from the games I've watched when it comes to offensive talent. You guys are right up there. And, a lot of it starts with your quarterback, Jaden Maiava. I hope I said that right. Obviously, it looks like he's going to be a complete star. Can you tell me a little bit about him?
So here's the biggest difference between Jaden Maiava this year and Jaden last year. Last year, he obviously came in after game 9, replacing Miller Moss. He played the final 4 games of the year, including that bowl game. He went 3-1. He was still going through that feeling out process because it was Miller's team. I mean, he had been with the program forever. It was his locker room. He knew he was the starter before the season started. Jaden had to kind of find his role, inside the locker room. And I think it took longer than anybody had anticipated. He knew it was his team this year, and he's just playing with more confidence. I think he has not thrown an interception. He's played nearly mistake-free. And because he's thrown 0 interceptions, he's been really, really good. He's making smart decisions. He's running the ball more. He has that ability. He's 6'4", 225 pounds. So not only can he flick the ball 70 yards if he has to without any type of effort, if the pocket breaks down, he can make something out of nothing. And Lincoln Riley is incorporating him into the run game. And USC has a really good run game right now that makes defending the pass more difficult because if you play action, you've got to respect, Waymon Jordan or Eli Sanders. And hopefully USC gets Brian Jackson back this week. He's their heavy hitter, goal line situations. Jaden Maiava has Mekhi Lemon on the outside. Hopefully Jacoby Lane will be healthy this game. But even if he's not, USC just always has wide receivers somewhere in that locker room that they're going to roll out. And to make things even worse for Illinois, the tight end is involved again in Lincoln Riley's offense. So you have all 3 facets working. You've got the passing game with the wide receivers, the running backs who also can catch the ball out of the backfield, and the tight ends if you need that, safety release over the middle, and Lake McCree, Walker Lyons. Everything's working on offense right now, including the offensive line. So, like you said, if you want to get into a shootout, typically, USC is going to have something that's going to – the goal is, score 1 more point than the other team.
Sure.
Can Illinois keep up with USC offensively?
And that's going to be the question, and that's what Mark and I are going to discuss right after this.
This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is, well, let's just talk about next weekend. I expect a full packed house in Grange Grove. Big Noon is in the house. The fans are what's going to be most important. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved.
All right, so we've talked about each of our teams. We've made each other feel good about our teams, maybe not so good about. Let's just talk about the game itself. How do you see this thing playing out? Give me once we know all the dirty little secrets, who wins, what's the score, and, what's going to be the difference in the game?
It's really, it's one of those things where my hands are up in the air, because if this Illinois team that's shown up in the second half of, the first three games, I think Illinois can win that game. But if it's a team that shows up in the first half that showed up against Duke and even arguably Western Michigan and certainly the full game against Indiana, then I think USC not only wins, but they can probably cover that 7.5 point spread. There's certain factors I'm factoring into this. The fact that it's 11 a.m. Central Time, that's a 9 a.m. kickoff for you guys.
Yep.
So, you're talking about your body clocks, maybe that's going to be needing to be adjusted. Can Bret Bielema and Bart Miller really work a miracle in that offensive line room? If they can, then again, my confidence level just goes higher. It looks like 6 of those 7 defensive backs that were out against Indiana, well, for the most part, Xavier Scott's going to be out for most of the year. We still don't know about Jaheim Clark, but Caleb Patterson, Torrey Cox, and Mac Rusetich, they should be coming back. And one of the captains of the defense, Matthew Bailey, our star safety, one of the best safeties in the Big Ten Conference, he's in concussion protocol. Bret Bielema hinted that he could very well play on Saturday too. If you have your full stable there, you're not going to get your full stable, but enough horses in the stable there on Saturday, I think Illinois can put up a fight. But there's a lot of ifs when it comes to this game and for the ideal game script for Illinois to win. So I hate to say it, but my prediction right now is going to be probably something like 38-28 USC. I think that we're going to be able to keep up with USC for the most part, but maybe at the end, because Luke's forced to make plays being down, maybe you guys get a turnover at the end and you're able to pull away from it. But this is also the first time I'm predicting an Illinois loss, so I'm hoping that I'm just reverse jinxing myself.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm looking forward to the trip to Champaign. This is going to be my second trip to, coming through Chicago this year. And I got one more to go when we go to Notre Dame later in the year. I'm getting very familiar with the Chicago airport. So I'm looking forward to a new environment. I know the game's sold out. I love going to other teams' venues. And, I'm not going to call it a bucket list, but you guys have one of the older programs in the country. I'm looking forward to, checking out the stadium and all that. Now, with that said, that's my own personal stuff. I'm with you. I think it's going to be a 10-point spread. I got the score being a little bit higher than you do. I got it 40-30. Mm-hmm. I am not picking against USC. That's why I picked winning this game. As I mentioned, I think you guys are going to bounce back early. I think if USC can hang with Illinois, I think that's the best way to put it. You guys should be coming out with some, breathing fire. Hopefully there won't be a 3-hour weather delay like USC dealt with at Purdue, which would compound this whole thing. Anyways, if they can get your crowd out of the game or at least minimize it, keep the score close going into halftime. It's all who makes the better halftime adjustments and who's going to be able to impose their will. I just think right now, based on what I've seen from Illinois, what I've seen from USC, USC, because that offense is working so well right now and the defense is getting better, even better than last year. They're only giving up, 20 points a game right now. And again, I keep the competition as in my back pocket, knowing this is who you played. So don't get too high on this. I think USC just has too many weapons in Illinois that they have to keep up with USC offensively. Defensively, I think USC is better. I am concerned about your outside linebacker maybe making me look kind of stupid right now.
Gabe Yackes has made a lot of people look stupid, but he But he was almost a no-show against Indiana. So, it's going to be interesting. What you said also is very interesting to me. And like the Illini crowd that's going to be watching this, and maybe, the USC Trojan crowd that's going to be watching this as well. I only kind of disagree in the sense where I think USC needs to get off to a fast start.
I agree.
If you guys go up 14-3, 21-10 at halftime, then I think that not only will the fan base, the people in that stadium, lose a lot of the energy from homecoming. They're making a big show of it on Saturday because we'll have that such recent memory of that Indiana Hoosier debacle. But I think if Illinois can keep it close at halftime and through the second half, I really trust this coaching staff with the second half adjustments that they've been making as of late. So to me, it's like I agree with your keys, but only reverse for Illinois. I think Illinois needs to keep it close up until halftime. And the longer this game is close, the better the percentage that I think that Illinois can pull this off. I mean, Luke Altmyer, there's no quarterback in the country that won more games in the fourth quarter than Luke Altmyer last year. The guy, when it's time to make a play, he'll make a play to win a game. But can Illinois be close enough to put him in that situation?
No, you guys won a lot of close games last year. And, that's what I think everyone was like, all right, well, they're battle tested. This is a team that should be able to not run through the conference, but, represent themselves really well. And so I understand where you're going. Look, if so far USC has been really good protecting the ball. They haven't had any turnovers. They've only had a couple of turnovers, I should say. No interceptions. What they have been guilty of, Coach Riley says they're over aggressive. They're near the top with penalties per game, and you can't do that on the road. So hopefully things, USC can correct those mental mistakes with their penalties, and they don't start turning the ball over this game, because then, your crowd will be into it. That's what I'm saying. I anticipate Illinois bouncing back, starting fast. USC has to match that because you guys are the home team. When you go on the road, USC's got to be able to match that intensity, let that emotion kind of wear off, and then start imposing their game onto you guys. So I understand where you're coming from. You understand where I'm coming from.
Should be a great game on Saturday. I can't wait.
I'm looking forward to it, man. Again, this is a box that USC and Lincoln Riley has to check off if he's going to show that this program is developing to where they should be. So this is the game I've had circled.
It's nice. It's a true newcomer, with the Pac-12 being disbanded, or I guess technically not, but you guys are leaving.
He took a hammer to it.
Yeah, right, exactly. Just USC and Illinois in a Big Ten game. This is just something for us to kind of look forward to. And there's going to be a lot of energy in that crowd, and I can't wait to watch that game on Saturday.
Yeah, like you said, last time USC and Illinois played, it was in the Rose Bowl. So, and I'm not talking about what the final result was, even though USC won. That's what we think about when we think about USC versus Illinois or Indiana or Michigan State or Ohio. It's that. So it's taken me some time still getting used to it. Trust me, I get it. I feel you.
Fair enough.
All right, that's it for this episode. This crossover episode of Locked On USC versus Locked On Illini. I had a great time. We're going to do it again. Hopefully, one of us is going to be happy at the end of the day Saturday. Well, make sure you check out our instant reaction shows. And until then, everyone, don't forget, Locked On USC with you 5 times a week, Locked On Illini 5 times a week, and more.